Okay, so this lesson is still on factoring, but this time there's going to be a coefficient in the very front, and this is what I mean. There's going to be a number right here in front of your x squared. It all works the exact same way, okay? So we're going to make our t-chart. We're going to do first times last, just like we did before. So 2 times 10 gives me 20 x squared. And then just like before, your middle term goes here on the right side. Again, nothing changes. We're going to do the factors of 20. What can we multiply to get 20? Well, we could do 1 times 20. We could do 2 times 10. We could do 4 times 5. And just like before, you're going to look to see which of these pairs will add to give you your 9 over here. And it's going to be 4 and 5. If we did 4 plus 5, we would get 9. This is the part that's going to change a little bit, okay? We're going to do 2 parentheses. This time, you're going to bring whatever coefficient is here down to both. So I'm going to put a 2 in front of both parentheses. And the x squared splits up into an x and an x. So that's the first part that's changing, okay? If there is a coefficient, if there is a number right here, you bring it down to both parentheses, okay? Then I'm going to put my answers. I had a plus 4 and I had a plus 5, okay? So that's the first thing that changes. The next thing that changes is that you have to look to see if you can reduce any parentheses, okay? What do I mean by reduce? Look at this first parentheses. I have a 2 and a 4. There's something that will go into both of those. A 2. 2 will go into both of those. So I'm going to take a 2 out. 2 divided by 2 is just 1. So I have an x. Bring down my plus. And 4 divided by 2 is 2. So take a look at these two parentheses. Okay, I really want you to look and see. A 2 went into a 2 and a 4. So I took a 2 out and it reduced to x plus 2. Okay? Look at your second parentheses. I have a 2 and a 5. Is there anything that will go into 2 and 5 other than 1? No. So I'm just going to bring this parentheses down. 2x plus 5. So these are your two answers. My factors of 2x squared plus 9x plus 10 are x plus 2 and 2x plus 5. Okay, let's do another one. Again, starts the exact same way. I'm going to make my t-chart. I'm going to do first times last, and that gives me 30 x squared. And your middle term is 31x. Okay, let's make factors of 30. 1 times 30. And I'm actually going to stop there because that's the one that's going to work, right? 1 plus 30 gives me 31. And you are more than welcome to do that. Once you figure out what it is, just stop. There's no need to list all the factors. So let me go and do my parentheses. Parentheses, 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 parentheses. And remember, your coefficient goes in both. So I'm going to put a 5 and a 5, and then split up my x squared into an x and an x. And my answers were positive 1 and positive 30. And the last step is to reduce. And that's the one step that I'm telling you guys in my 12 years of teaching this. That's the step that people forget. So please don't forget. So let's look at this first parentheses, 5 and 1. Nothing will go into 5 and 1. So that's one of my answers, 5x plus 1. Let's look here, 5 and 30. There is something that will go into 5 and 30. It's not 2. 2 won't go into 5. It's actually going to be 5. 5 goes into both of them. So I'm going to factor out a 5. I'm going to divide by 5. 5 divided by 5 is nothing. So I'm going to bring down my x. Or it's not nothing, sorry, it's 1. 5 divided by 5 is 1. And I'm going to divide by 30. 30 divided by 5 is 6. So my answer, my factor, is 5x plus 1 and x plus 6. All right, so next problem, let's do another one. We're going to make our t-chart. First times last. This time, because of this sign right here, is going to be a negative 30 x squared. And my middle term is a positive 7. Now, if you think about your rules for multiplication, the only way you can multiply to get a negative is if one is positive and one is negative. Let me show you what I mean. I could do 1 times negative 30. Well, that's a 3. Doesn't look like it. And that would give me negative 30. Or I could do the opposite. I could do negative 1 times 30. And that would give me negative 30. So if your first term is a negative, we kind of got to be careful and try both ways. All right? So how else could I get 30? I could do 3 times negative 10. Or I could do negative 3 times 10. I could do 2 times negative 15. Or I could do negative 2 times 15. I could do 6 times negative 5. Or I could do negative 6 times 5. And that's it. That's what will give me 7. Now, if you're not good with adding negatives, which some of you aren't, and that's perfectly fine, grab a calculator. So grab your calculator and do 1 plus negative 30. And that gives you negative 29, which is not what we want. We want 7, so that doesn't work. Let's try negative 1 plus 30. That gives me positive 29. Again, I want 7. That doesn't work. Negative 3 plus 10 gives me negative 7. Well, that's close, but I want a positive 7. So that's not right. Negative 3 plus 10 gives me 7. So this is what I'm using, negative 3 and 10. So let's go back and do our parentheses. Remember, if there is a coefficient, you bring it down to both. So I'm going to bring that 5 to both parentheses. I'm going to split up my x squared into an x and an x. And my factors were a negative 3 and a positive 10. And last step, we need to reduce. So what will go into 5 and 3? Nothing. So I'm just going to bring this down. 5x minus 3. What will go into 5 and 10? It's not 2. 2 won't go into 5. It's going to be 5. 5 goes into 5 and 5 goes into 10. So I'm going to divide out 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. So we bring my x down. 10 divided by 5 is 2. So my factors are 5x minus 3 and x plus 2. We got 2 more to do, so stick with me. Make our t-chart. First times last is going to be 20 x squared. My middle term, because of this, is a negative 9x. Now, the only way you can multiply to get a positive, right? My 20 is positive, and add to get a negative is if they're both negative. So I could do negative 1 times negative 20. That gives me positive. I could do negative 2 times negative 10. I could do negative 4 times negative 5. Again, if you're not good with negatives, grab your calculator and add them. Negative 1 plus negative 20 is negative 21. That's not right. I want negative 9. Negative 2 plus negative 10 is negative 12. That's not right. I want negative 9. Negative 4 plus negative 5, that's the one that works. It gives me negative 9. So these are my factors that I'm using. So let's do our parentheses. Bring my 4 down to both of them. Split up my x into an x and an x. And my answers were a negative 4 and a negative 5. And the last step is to reduce. So what will go into 4 and 4? I know a lot of you are going to think 2, but you want the highest. So there's something bigger than 2 that will go into both of those. And it's actually 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. And here, 4 divided by 4 is 1. So I'm going to do my division. 4 divided by 4 gives me 1. So I'm going to bring my x down. And right here, 4 divided by 4 is 1. Okay, let's look at your second parentheses. A 4 and a 5. There's nothing. That will go into 4 and 5. So I'm just going to bring down 4x minus 5. And that's your answer. All right, last one. T-chart, first times last is negative 12 x squared. And your middle term, okay, good, I want to see this. Look at your middle term. You see how there's no number? But there really is. We know there's a number hanging out right here. It's a 1. So here I'm going to put a 1x. Again, to multiply to get a negative means 1 will have to be negative and 1 would be positive. So I could do 1 and negative 12, or vice versa, negative 1 and positive 12. I could do 2 times negative 6, or I could do negative 2 times 6, or I could do 3 times negative 4, or I could do negative 3 times 4. So grab your calculator, add these, and you get negative 11. That's not right, I want a 1. Add these and you get positive 11. Again, I want 1. Add these and you get negative 4. That doesn't work. Add these and you get positive 4. That's not right. Add these and you get negative 1. That's close, but I want a positive 1. Add these and you would get positive 1. So here are my answers. Let's break this down. Bring your 2 down to both parentheses. Split up your x into an x and an x. And my answers were a minus 3 and a plus 4. Let's reduce. What will go into 2 and 3? Nothing. So I'm just going to bring down 2x minus 3. Here, what will go into 2 and 4? 2 will. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. So I'm going to bring my x down. And 4 divided by 2 is 2. All right, that will get you through the worksheet. So try that worksheet and turn it in.